Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Uh, Starting something new here. Really, actually going back to the roots and gonna do something here where I start doing a live show every Sunday. Come in here and just kind of bullshit with everybody. So this is kind of how I started. I'll back this up and explain a little bit. It's how I started. Actually, my podcast, my show here was actually going live, coming in here, talking to people, just kind of ranting and raving about anything and everything. Just really having some open discussions with people. I used to do this live on Facebook only. Now I'm going to pretty much keep it here on YouTube. So it's contained pretty much to my channel itself. I'm going to fix something here. And going to get a little bit louder for you guys here. I think that helps out a little bit. But anyway, so yeah, so what I'll be doing is here coming live every Sunday. It'll be an open chat. Anybody can come in. You guys talk shit, whatever. Add to the content. Don't really care. So, want to start right off with that I watched. Or actually, I listened to the Donald Trump interview, President Trump interview on the Nelk Boys podcast. I thought it was. I'm going to start off by saying I think it's insane. I think it's ridiculous that YouTube would pull that down. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that YouTube would pull um, the podcast from President Trump off of YouTube. Um, I think it's insane. There's no reason. I listened to it. I went back, viewed everything, and I can't really see. Obviously Trump. He did talk about um, in the podcast interview. He did talk about that he did believe there was some type of election rigging, so to speak, that the election was fixed. Here's the thing that I have to say about it. I've not seen definitive proof that it wasn't. I don't have any of that proof. I have none of that information whatsoever. I have nothing that actually shows that it did not occur. I've also not been presented with anything definitive showing that it anything that occurred would have substantially affected the outcome. I do believe that there was some irregularities, and I do believe that in a country like ours, in a republic like the United States of America, the greatest experiment known to man, that it is concerning that some of these things would even be asked. I don't think that we should live in this country and have to question whether or not our elections are fixed or rigged, rather whether there's an issue there. I think that we should be free of that. I don't think that we should have to face that. And there is enough questions raised that we should at least have the discussion. You should at least be able to have the discussion. Now, I can't say, and I listened into it. It was about a 45-minute interview. I did not hear anything in there regarding COVID that would be labeled as misinformation. I don't even think they went down the road of discussion on COVID to go that direction. I think Trump did reference where he believed uh, the virus came from, but as far as going down the road of efficacy of the vaccine or masks or anything like that, I don't believe they had that discussion. I literally believe that it was taken down simply for misinformation regarding the election fraud. Uh, and I guess that's the hard part. Someone should be able to have their opinion regarding that. They should be able to say that I think that there's a problem here. I think that something better should have been done. I don't think that that's out of the question. I think that it is bothersome that we wouldn't be able to ask those questions. That does bother me that we would not be able to ask those kinds of questions. Um, and that is concerning that YouTube would take it down. Now, their show had roughly 5 million views in the span of 24 hours. That's a tremendous amount of people that are interested in wanting and seeing what President Trump had to say. Um, and for it to be taken down is quite bothersome. Um, I will say that I'm not, and I've said this all along. I've not been a fan of the things Trump says personally. I've never been a fan of him as a person. I think that he could do a lot better job of keeping his mouth shut. But at the same time, that's what the American people like about him. That's what uh, Americans love about Trump is that he is so brash, that he is so honest, and he does say things that everybody else is thinking. Does that come across as presidential? I don't know. I've never been put in that position, so I can't really say, and that's really not for me to say. I do personally believe that he could have done things better. I do believe that he came across as very unpresidential in many, many ways, but I don't vote for somebody because I like them personally. If it like here in Texas, if Abbott could do something better, I'm gonna, I'm trying to. Again, this is kind of the first time I'm doing this one, so I'm gonna kind of play around with the camera a little bit, play around with a few things. I do believe that in a place like Texas, that we should, for example, have legalized marijuana. I am not a fan of having it illegal in this state. I think for so many reasons it should be legal here in Texas. I think that we should have legal marijuana here in Texas. Oklahoma has it legalized. New Mexico has it legalized. Louisiana has it decriminalized. There's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't have it here in the state. I find it is disturbing to me that we don't have it. I think we should. I think that we should have it for medical purposes. Right now, we do have some type of medical, at least from the ability in like the medical center. People can use it for studies. I do believe that they legalized it as of September that um, you can treat it for military PTSD. Um, I think that we've established that it's good in those ways. I think that they should establish legal marijuana here in the state of Texas for the purposes of tax revenue. Put a sin tax on it. People want to smoke marijuana here in the state. Put a sin tax on it, just like alcohol. People want to go buy alcohol, charge a sin tax. Put a 15, 20%, 30% tax on top of it, whatever, and people are going to buy it. Um, Going from wow, my dogs in here. Going from that perspective and what I do know about government, obviously living here in Texas, I think one of the concerns is how do they control it? Because we are so close to the border. What you end up having is you have cartels, the potential of cartels coming in and setting up legal organizations here in the state of Texas, and that money going back over. It's still ultimately coming from the cartels and ultimately going back to the cartels. So I think the state of Texas is concerned with how they're going to maintain that, how they're going to manage that. If you have a cartel that comes in and sets up a legal corporation and they're able to do business legally here in the state of Texas, you are essentially funding terrorism. You're essentially funding the cartels that are over the border. They are kidnapping people. They are forcing women into the sex trade. They are promoting violence. They have to do that for the maintenance of their power, so to speak. They have to be able to do those things to be able to keep their power. So you do have these issues. There are these concerns here in the state of Texas that are, I think, are legitimate. The other real concern, I think, that Texas is very heavily aligned with the freedoms and individual sovereignty. The problem that you go into now is now you become an unbankable entity. Even if you're a legal corporation here in the state of Texas, you cannot bank through the traditional banking process. You cannot go open as a company, go open a bank at Chase Bank and go into and deposit your money from the sale of marijuana in to Chase Bank, Bank of America, Wood Forest, all the different banks that we have here in Texas. You have to go to non-traditional banking standards. You would have to go to somebody who doesn't deal with the Federal Reserve, somebody that does not deal with the FDIC, because the federal government still has marijuana as a Schedule 1 drug, and that by those terms, it's illegal. And any business that operates within those parameters, it does also become an illegal enterprise by default. So that becomes a very difficult thing to see here in Texas, that I know the government is looking into. But there is a bipartisan bill. There is a definitive bipartisan bill that has been on the desk, that has been on here in Texas, ready to present to Governor Abbott, and he's stated several times that he's going to veto it. If it comes across his desk, he's going to veto it, which sucks. That's horrible. Um, but again, I only know parts and pieces. If they're only doing it because they don't want legal marijuana in the state of Texas, I think they can look to so many other states around the country and see that it's not necessarily going to make, people drug addicts here in Texas. It's not going to have a rise in crime here in the state of Texas, because you can look to all the other states around us that you have not seen a rise in crime or addiction with the legalization of marijuana. Look to states like California and Washington and Oklahoma and New Mexico and Louisiana. You don't have that. But in Texas, we do have a very large population that, I guess they're just not for it. And I understand that. At this point, I just think that I think it's a foolish thing, and I think it's something that does cause the rest of the country to look at us here in Texas as being very backwards. You throw into some of our other laws, our other things that we have on the books, and it causes the rest of the country to think of Texas as a very backwards place. When in actuality, we are not. We are not a very backwards place. We're very forward thinking, very pro individual rights, very pro business here in the state, and there's a lot of things in place that promote those individual freedoms, those in the ability to do business in the state of Texas. There's a lot of that here, and it just, some of these things like the 6-week abortion law. Basically, it's not 6 weeks. What it is here in the state of Texas, the Governor Abbott signed into law that went into effect September 1st, which was an abortion law that said once a heartbeat can be detected, that you can no longer have an abortion, that a provider can no longer provide an abortion. And then there was a lot of archaic things in there, pretty much like bounties for people, could turn people in if if they were found out to be having an abortion. That's a ridiculous thing. You start turning neighbors on others. Now, a judge stepped in and basically put a halt to some of those things that are within the law. But and abortions are still occurring here in the state of Texas. And I will say definitively, as a man, as an individual, I don't believe that it's my place to tell a woman what to do with her body. I'm not pro abortion. I am not going to come out here and say that I think it's fine and it should be used as means of contraception. I think that people should exercise responsibility when choosing to have sex, that you should take accountability for your actions. It's not a get out of jail free card to say, "Hey, I got pregnant, I'm going to have an abortion." I think that's the wrong way to look at it. However, I am not a woman. I don't know the ins and outs of every little thing that it does to your body. No man does, and I don't think that any man has the ultimate right to be able to say to a woman, "Hey, this is what you have to do with your body." I don't like that. I'm not for that. I'm not going to agree to that. I don't think that's the right thing to do. So you have laws like that here in the state of Texas, along with the fact that we don't have legalized marijuana, and that causes a lot of people around the world to look at us like we're backwards. Now, of course, we can look at places like New York that say basically a baby can be aborted all the way to the time it takes its first breath. We can look at that as backwards. We can look at that as I mean, in the common sense of things, I think it's fucking ludicrous to say that you're going to abort a baby that you carried within your womb for 9 months, and all of a sudden you're going to abort the baby literally just before it takes its first breath. Now, there is always a caveat to this. Number one, the very first and foremost primary concern of anybody should be the health, safety, and wellness of the mother, the vessel, the person that is carrying that child. That's primary number one. That everybody should look out and say, how is this birth going to affect the woman? I don't, at no point do I think that the life inside of her overrides her life. A woman's uh, birth, or sorry, the woman carrying the baby is primary number one, and that's I do believe how we should look upon things. But once you get past that, if the woman isn't at risk, if the woman doesn't have medical concerns, and I think there are some other things that should be factored, other things that should be considered. I do think that we should go further with that. But again, I'm not a woman, and I don't really believe I have the right to tell a woman what to do. So you got these bills here in Texas. You got legalized the ability to legalize marijuana. You have the ability to add a sin tax to it. I think that would show not only to the people here in Texas that I believe overwhelmingly want marijuana. Look, I've never done drugs in my life. I've never done any kind of drug whatsoever. Nothing from marijuana to steroids to cocaine. Nothing. There was one occasion where I thought I was smoking weed, but it was my friends. They played a trick on me, and they actually gave me a bunch of they took tobacco out of a cigarette and they rolled it up and they made it look like a joint. And it's not that I have not, I guess, not tried to smoke weed. It's the fact that I just haven't. And but I'm not opposed to it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I don't condemn any of my friends. I don't look down upon any of my friends that choose to smoke weed. I know some very, very intelligent, very productive, very, very wealthy individuals that smoke weed, marijuana, and there's nothing wrong with them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these individuals. So I don't look at it, and if they're smoking it, they're not going out and getting addicted to other drugs. They're not turning around and because they smoked marijuana and automatically jumping into doing cocaine or doing meth or heroin, or other kind of opiates. It's not gateway for them to go do something else. They just want to smoke some weed and they want to relax, and that's up to them. People do that for alcohol. I mean, the legalization of cigarettes, the fact that cigarettes are out there, cigarettes have killed more people. They are the largest instrument of death throughout history. More people have died because of cigarettes and tobacco than anything else ever in history. More than war. They kill tobacco. Tobacco kills 6 million people a year around the world. That's more people than that's about the equivalent to the Jews who died in the Holocaust. That is 10 times the amount of people that died uh, during the Civil War. Um, and this happens every single year around the world. Of course, there are other things that cause death in the world, like obesity and diabetes and cancer, but or other kinds of cancer. But cigarettes kill more people than anything else ever in history, but it's still legal, and you pay a big tax on it. You're going to pay a big tax on marijuana. So what? Pass it, move it on down the road, and let's learn to deal with it. Texas is one of the only countries, or it's like a country, but Texas is one of the only states in the United States that has every single year a surplus budget. And yet we still have constant construction on interstate highways. You constantly have our local surface roads under construction. Why not generate more revenue, tax revenue, instead of taxing individuals for their property, for the gas that we buy, for the food that we buy? Why do we go through and apply more taxes on individuals for things that they have to have, when if you go buy cigarettes, if you go buy alcohol, you don't have to have those. Those are choices, and they are taxed very heavily. So we should also tax marijuana. Make marijuana legal here in the state of Texas. There is absolutely no reason why it should not be legal. It's just fucking dumb. It's a dumb thing. So anyway, the some of the other stuff going into the Trump stuff, obviously lead down the road of Biden, the things going on there. I think it's insane that we have he's clearly mentally incompetent. He's got major mental issues. He's constantly stumbling and bumbling around, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that I think people should be waking up again. The majority of the people that voted in this country, that people that voted for Trump, they voted for I think they voted for, there was a big majority that voted for Trump because they loved his policies and procedures. Again, I'll say this. I didn't like Trump as the man. I didn't like him Trump as the individual. I like what he did for us as a country. But of course, there are a percentage of people that voted for Trump simply because he was Trump. There are, even more people that voted for him for his policies. The overwhelming majority of people that voted for Biden, they voted for Biden not because they wanted Biden, it's because they were voting against Trump. Their vote for Biden was a vote against Trump. And I got that. I understood that. They couldn't separate the man that Trump was prior to coming into office to the man that he was in office and the things he was doing for our country. So I get that. And that's the beautiful thing about democracy. It's a beautiful thing about our republic is that you get to cast your vote the way you see fit. And it is our most solemn duty is to vote. But you're looking at Biden now, and I'm curious as to see how many people have buyer's remorse. I would like to hear that, see that in the comments. Are there people that voted for Biden that maybe still would have voted for him or not voted for Trump? I understand if you would not have voted for Trump, but do you have buyer's remorse? Do you look at where we are as a country now, as a nation, and say, are we better off? And do you have buyer's remorse for voting for Biden? So I don't know. So look, I've got somebody. Look, again, this is the very first live I've done this way. I've got one person watching it. Could you comment in the comment section there and let me know? Can you hear me? Can you hear everything fine? Is the volume good? Tell me I sound like shit. Whatever that I need to fix this. If you could in the comment section, whoever's watching there, let me know. But I am curious. Do we have people that look at the country now and say, yeah, hey, we're better off, that our country is in a much better position today as a result of Biden than we were a year ago under Trump? I had a friend who put up, okay, this is obviously going to go into gas prices, things like that, where we have record high inflation, where right now, if we stay on the track that we're on right now, in 10 years, $1,000 right now will be worth roughly $450 10 years from now if we stay on the track of the inflation that we're on right now. That's fucking insane. That is absolutely insane. And you know that salaries are not going to keep pace with that. You know that all of our cost of living is going to increase as cost of fuel goes up. Why? Well, as cost of fuel goes up, it costs more to ship things across the country. It costs more to run infrastructure. It costs more for stores to get milk on the shelves. So, then it costs more for the producers of the milk to make the milk and get it to, the distribution centers, whatever. All of these costs are going to go up as fuel goes up. So we are not going to see any kind of break on the consumer end anytime soon. And so I have to ask, are we better as a country today because we don't have mean tweets anymore? Are we better as a country today because somebody who was, and I don't think for one second that Trump is racist. I don't think that Biden is racist. I think that they're both old men and they have said horrendous shit in their past. I think Trump is kind of almost cartoonish and buffoonish, and I think that Biden is entrenched in the institution of government. He's been around in government for 50 years. He's been there and he's seen a lot of things and he's done a lot of things and he's said a lot of things. Again, I don't think that he is inherently racist, but he's actually said things on the floor of Congress where he's used the N-word on the floor of Congress while giving a speech. And you don't have people, just screaming up and down about, deplatforming Biden, removing Biden from the office when it's on record. He's got a speech where he said the N-word. But you've never had Trump, because believe me, if it had been said, if there was ever any kind of recording where Trump had used the N-word, I guarantee you people would have brought it out. It would have been brought out all over the media, just like they did with Joe Rogan, because it was on record that Joe Rogan used the N-word multiple times. And of course, when the left, I'm not going to say liberal, I'm not going to say Democrat, I am going to say the left, because you cannot associate Democrats strictly with liberals, because there are conservatives, there are liberals, there are Republicans, there are Democrats, there's the left, there's the right. They are not synonymous. They typically trend in one direction or the other as one is established, but to be conservative does not necessarily mean Republican. It means that you typically would lean Republican. Well, I am very liberal in many, many ways. I have very, very many liberal sensibilities, but I do typically lean towards Republican votes because they're typically for lower taxes. They're typically for lowering the things that I don't have a choice in. Again, I don't have a problem with them charging whatever tax that people, that they can charge for alcohol, for tobacco, for things like marijuana, because those are choices, those are luxuries. You don't need those things to exist. But things like gas taxes that you have to buy in a place like Texas. It's so fucking big. It's so huge that we have to have vehicles. Mass transit in a place like Houston is so poor. We don't have subways. We don't have buses that go all the way. I mean, you have buses that go to centralized locations in the suburbs, and you have to drive your vehicle to that location, park and ride type places. You park your car, you get on the bus, and then you go down these high occupancy vehicle lanes in the bus from places like the Woodlands in Katy, and they bring you into the city. But once you get into the city, there's the light rail. There is literally, it's called the Metro Rail, and it literally goes down downtown. It's Main Street in downtown Houston. It's not like you have these rails that go all over the place, that you have rails that head out towards Katy, the far west side, the far north side, northwest side. You don't have that. And so in a place like Texas where gas taxes are kind of high, there is a lot of that. There's a lot of those things here. Property taxes are higher here in Texas than they are in California. Um, of course, property and the cost of living is lower in Texas than California. So, whereas you can get if you look here in Texas, you get a $750,000 house here in Texas. It's going to get you an amazingly large house. It's going to get you something, along the lines, typically, it's going to get you something along the lines of like a 5,000, 6,000 square foot house. That's amazing because your dollar goes further here in Texas. But you're going to actually, when you get a $750,000 house, a $750,000 mortgage in Texas versus say a $750,000 mortgage in California, you may only get a 3,000 square foot house. But because the property taxes are lower in California, you're actually going to have a lower overall mortgage. You're not going to get much bang for your buck. And that's why a lot of people come to Texas, because they would rather have the 5,000 square foot house for $750,000 versus the 2,000 square foot house that they're going to get in California. So where I lean personally, I lean on the conservative side because conservatives typically are for lowering taxes for the individual, for the things that you have to have, the things that I require to live. The taxes are lower. Again, you don't have to have a house. Yes, you have to have a home. You have to have somewhere, a roof over your head, but you don't necessarily have to own the house. Owning a house is a luxury. It's not a right. It is a luxury. There is the ability to lease. And you don't have to have, that's the other side of things. Even if you consider that owning a home is a right, you don't have to, you're not, it is a luxury to own a bigger and bigger and bigger home. I do consider myself very fortunate here in Texas that I am able to afford the house that I do live in. It's not some palatial estate. It's a pretty average standard suburban Houston area home, and I'm grateful for that. But you go you go down this road of where we're at right now. Thank God I was able to get into my house when taxes were low. Interest rates were low, but interest rates are steadily climbing. They are artificially being held down right now. But with inflation going up, you're going to have interest rates that are increasing. I've had friends that have purchased homes recently, family members that have purchased homes recently, that the home I live in, the home I purchased back in August of 2000, my home is larger, and I was able to purchase it for a substantially lower amount than they were able to purchase it for, and at a much lower interest rate. It's gonna really start affecting everybody, and I think that again, I go back to this: does the people that voted for Biden, do you guys have buyer's remorse? Do you look at your decision to vote for Biden yet at this point to say, man, I really question my decision. I'm really questioning what I did. What did I do? Did I allow my emotion and my hate for mean tweets and stupid shit that came out of Trump's mouth guide my life to say, I would rather have less mean tweets than lower interest rates, because that's essentially what you voted for. And again, I'm not going to go down. I can't go down the road of, Biden's a bad guy, Trump's a good guy. I'm not going to say that. I think that they both have their faults and flaws. So I have to say, do the people that voted for Biden, do you think that what you've done is better? Do you think it's made the country better? Do you think it's improved the country at all? And I would love to hear that. Uh, to be honest, I've not been able to have a conversation with anybody who has said that we are better off today as a country. And I go down that road. Look at our gas prices. Look at inflation. Look at the interest rates. Okay. Look at our position around the world. Even when you have uh, liberal commentators like Trevor Noah, like Bill Maher, who are very outwardly liberal, and they will say that they are very liberal. They're saying that Putin would never have done what he did under Trump. And people are going to say, well, yeah, it's because Trump and Putin were buddies. No, that's not the fucking case. Because if that were the case, if they were buddies, then Putin would have had a much easier path in to the Ukraine with Trump in office. But in reality, he didn't do it because Trump was an unknown, because Trump hadn't been in office. He didn't have an established record as to how he would respond to any given scenario over a 40 or 50-year period like Biden. Putin was less likely to do anything under Trump for the fear that Trump would have just unleashed fucking hell on Biden, or sorry, on Russia. That Trump would have come down extremely hard. He didn't know whether or not that would occur because Trump was an unknown. Well, when you take Biden, Biden is in the office. Biden is sitting there doing, Biden has an established track record as to how he is going to respond. He was the vice president of the United States for 8 years. So it's a pretty well established track record as to what he is going to do and what he's not going to do. So you have Bill Maher, you have Trevor Noah, and you have any other number of liberal commentators that are literally saying, hey, Putin would never have done what he's doing with Trump in the office. Not because he was buddies with fucking Trump. It's because Trump is foolish enough to unleash fucking World War III. He is. But now we're being drug into it. And that's the other side of things. If you've ever been in a lawsuit, you've ever been sued, you've ever had to deal with any kind of, whatever legal action or even a physical altercation, you want to be in control. You are in a much better position if you are in control of the situation than if you are responding or reacting to the situation. I watched a podcast with Jocko Willink, and when you want to talk about fucking badass, you want to talk about warrior, he is the definition. He is the epitome of what it means to be a bad motherfucker. And when he talks about getting into a conflict, he said his strongest tools are his brain and his legs, because he has the ability to think and walk away. He has that choice. He maintains that control. As long as he is maintaining that control, he has the ability to direct and drive how things are going to occur. Now, if someone puts their hands on him, of course he's going to have to respond, but he doesn't give a fuck. He is a bad motherfucker and has nothing to prove to anybody. He doesn't have to go out and prove that he's a badass. They can beat somebody's ass in a bar. He can simply turn around and walk away. He knows what he's capable of. On top of that, he is much more likely to suffer severe financial and legal consequences because he is a bad motherfucker. He is the baddest of the bad. He knows what damage he can do individually, and he's going to walk away. He can choose to walk away. He doesn't have to sit around and engage these people because he has nothing to prove. He only has something to lose by engaging somebody in a physical altercation. So it is much better to be in control and maintaining a proactive approach to many, many scenarios. Well, that's where we were as far as the world was concerned. As far as the world was concerned, as far as the world stage was, that we were maintaining control, that we were maintaining this presence and this power and the perception that we were going to respond in kind if necessary. Well, the Olympics end. Every country around the world sends their athletes home, and within 2 days, Putin invades the Ukraine. And Biden comes right out and he says, we're going to do nothing. He says, we're going to support our NATO allies, but we will not interfere with Russia invading the Ukraine. Well, he basically just opened the door for Putin to say, hey, we're not going to stop you. We're not going to do anything because the Ukraine's not a member of NATO. North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was formed after World War II. Now you have all these European, the EU, you have all these European nations that are members of the of NATO. And sure, hey, we're going to help defend Poland if necessary. We're going to put people in some of these other countries in the event it goes beyond that. In the event it goes beyond the Ukraine, but you're not going to stop them from going into the Ukraine. And you're giving Putin a direct access to the Black Sea, which puts them directly on the border of Poland, that puts them directly, with access to other countries. You said it. He said it right then and there. He's not going to stop them. And I think that's an absolute ridiculous, way of going about things. I think that that's very sad that this is the way that Biden has gone about it. And it's bothersome. The other thing that really bothers me, the other thing that really upsets me about what's going on here is, the left, the Democrat Party, and the new green, the Green New Deal is all about removing emissions. It's all about lowering pollution. Well, the reason Trump removed himself from the Paris, Accords is because it didn't matter what the United States did. The United States has already got policies in place for the systematic reduction of our carbon footprint. They're already going out there every single day and doing things to lower emissions. But what ends up happening is because we are the largest country out there, you have countries like China and India that are flat out saying we are not going to reduce ours. What's happening is the Paris Accords was that the United States was going to have to agree to all of these reductions, and China and India were not going to agree to that. So it didn't matter what we did. They're increasing their emissions. We are already reducing ours. So it was a bad financial decision for us to go in there because it was only going to hurt our economy. It was only going to put heavier restrictions on our economy for everybody to say, hey, we've got to spend more money to reduce our emissions. And these other two, the number one and the number two polluters in the world, China and India, they're not going to do any reduction. Okay, well, that's their country. And their exact response is, hey, how did the United States bring themselves out of poverty? How did the United States bring themselves out of the Great Depression? And that was by production. And that was by getting out there and creating an industrial revolution and polluting the earth, unfortunately. So I understand. So I understand India and China's perception and their point of view is to say, we're not going to do that. We're going to try to bring our country and our economy out of poverty. And I totally understood that. It doesn't make me happy. I tell you what, I got another person watching here. If you're watching this and you can you tell me if you can hear everything fine? I don't know. Like I said, this is the first time I'm doing a live here. So I don't know if nothing is being recorded. So I don't know if anything's actually, you guys can hear anything. So if you're watching this right now, could you let me know if you can hear everything? Just type a message in the comments there. Just say, thumbs up, you can hear me, or, hey, Jason, you're a stupid ass. Yes. Whatever. You fucking suck. I don't know. But, so you have these things. And in reality, you had the left, you had the Green New Deal that's pushing all these things. But guess what? We were energy independent. And this is where I'm going to go with this. We were on a path to reduce our carbon footprint through pipelines, through the reduction. Right now, because the pipelines were shut down, we're having to move all of the oil across the country by train. We're having to move it across the country by trucks. It's going in rail cars. It's going in tankers. And it's having to be moved across the country in things that are burning fossil fuels. It's actually costing more now because we shut down the Keystone XL pipeline. Yes, was it going to cause damage to the environment from having to tear things down and having to build infrastructure around it? Yes, absolutely. But that infrastructure was not going to create a net gain or net larger damage than what we are having to do with the rail systems. We were having to go out and put everything on trains, which is actually polluting more. And then on top of that, this is the thing that really fucked me up um when I'm seeing a lot of this stuff. What really fucked up my mind was the fact that we were net independent. We were producing so much oil and natural gas here in the United States that we were actually exporting more than we were bringing in. Yes, as a country, the size of our country, the size of our economy, the size of our you know our stretch and width of everything, we do have to import. We always have. But we were actually producing so much that we were actually exporting more than we were bringing in. Well, now it's the opposite way around. And when you go in and we're buying 500,000 barrels a day from Russia, the United States has been buying. We were not buying Russian oil under Trump. Now, under Biden, we are buying 500,000 barrels a day from Russia. Well, guess what? Guess what? They're not slowing down their pipelines. They're not slowing down their pollution. And we're buying their oil now when we were doing everything possible to reduce emissions, everything possible to reduce our carbon footprint under our own production with the use of with natural gas, and it burns much cleaner than oil. But now Russia is actually ramping up their production and they're polluting more than we were with the same 500,000 barrels a day. On top of that, the 500,000 barrels a day we're paying to that we're buying from Russia, we're essentially by proxy financing the invasion of the Ukraine. By proxy, we are financing a war because we're buying oil every single day from a country that's invading another country while condemning the actions of that country. So by proxy, we're financing it. By proxy, we're saying, hey, go in and do your fucking thing because we haven't stopped buying the oil. If we were to stop buying that oil and we were to start producing our own, that would send a signal over to Putin. Not this favored nation status to tell everybody to pull fucking Russian products off the shelf. Remember this, there's a difference between the United States government and the citizens of the United States. The same thing applies for Russia. There's a big difference between the citizens of Russia and the government of Russia. If you're turning around and you're not buying vodka, Biden is telling people to take the vodka, Russian made vodka off the shelf, Russian made products off the shelf. That's not hurting the Russian government. You're hurting the fucking Russian people. There's people out there that produce these things. Yes, I get it. There's oligarchs and things like that, but these are people. There are people at the end of the day that are producing these products. There are farmers out there that are growing the potatoes and they're fermenting these things, and that's they're hurting the individual people. And so to say, hey, we're going to continue buying 500,000 barrels of oil per day, but we want you to take the Russian vodka off your shelf. Well, guess what? You have companies here in the United States that have already purchased that vodka. You have United States citizens that own these companies that have already purchased that vodka. The distributors have already sent it out to stores. Stores have already paid for it. They need to sell it. The cost of shipping all of this stuff has already taken place. You're actually going to hurt our economy more. You're going to hurt American citizens. You're going to hurt American companies by telling them to take Russian products off of the shelves. And we are still, that is nothing. Take the vodka off the shelves. Fucking come on. You're talking about 500,000 barrels a day. 500,000 barrels a day at a price. Now, the price on the stock market for an open barrel, we're going to call it $100. Okay. That's not what we're paying for it, but say it's $100. Okay. If it's $100, add two zeros to 500,000 and you're at $50 million. You're at $50 million a day that we are shipping over to Russia. $50 million a day. Now, granted, hey, that's not 5 billion. That's not 50 million or 500 million, whatever. It's literally $50 million a day that we're sending over to Russia. if you cut the price in half and say that we're buying at $50 a barrel, we are sending $25 million a day over to Russia and by proxy financing the war that is happening over in the Ukraine. Now, here's the other side of this that no one fucking pays attention to is that 60% of all pollution that takes place around the world is directly to do with the production of construction materials, harvesting construction materials, things like that, and the construction industry. So the trucks, the trailers, the equipment, it takes energy, it takes fossil fuels to go in and mill lumber. You have to go in and you have to cut down trees. So that means you have to have oil and gas to run the tractors that are, in the saws and all the equipment that are harvesting the trees. And then you have to have the manufacturing and production of trucks that are going to bring the lumber, the timber into the sawmills. So you have this whole logistics line that creates pollution. And now what you have is if you got 60% of all pollution created worldwide can be directly tied to the construction industry and the manufacturing of construction materials, look what's happened in the Ukraine. You have entire cities that are being decimated. You have buildings that are being completely demolished. They're going to have to be rebuilt. You've got medical complexes that are being destroyed by the Russians in Ukraine, and those are going to have to be rebuilt. So now we're not only creating more pollution in the air by the bombs and the burning and all this other stuff, they're going to have to create more pollution to rebuild these structures. Sure, the structures may come back and they may be more energy efficient after the fact, but it costs money and there is a carbon footprint for the production of that material to rebuild them, and then the carbon impact for actually rebuilding them. What no one is thinking about is the fact that we're not going to rebuild, but more than likely the United States. We already agreed into the brand new $1.5 trillion spending bill on top of the $5 trillion that we've already spent over the last 2 years. We just signed a brand new $1.5 trillion spending bill that's going to send $14 billion in aid over to the Ukraine. What that means, no one exactly knows. We don't exactly know what the $14 billion is going to be that goes right over to the Ukraine. But the United States is going to be, carrying a big bill to go and rebuild the Ukraine. Why? Because we're going to want influence over there. If Russia ends up being installed into the Ukraine and they maintain permanent control over the Ukraine, we won't go over there. But what we will end up doing is we're going to send things over there right now so that way we can maintain, a different version of favored nation status, where when we go in there, we're going to want to put in some type of military base. We're going to come in there and say, we want a footprint in there. So now guess what? The United States is going to go and put a military base inside of Ukraine. That's going to cost us money. We're going to have to continue to send over, support and aid over time. That's if Russia doesn't stay inside. Then who's going to rebuild it? Again, the United States is the largest contributor to NATO. We're the largest contributor to the WHO. We have the largest economy in the world. So it's going to be put back on us. It's going to be put back on the American taxpayers. So allowing Putin to fucking go in there and do this is going to create a fucking a snowball effect that is going to increase pollution. It's going to put more burden on the U.S. taxpayers. And Biden doesn't fucking care. He made it very clear he's not going to stop it. He's not going to interfere with it. I don't think that anybody looks. I think that people are just now kind of waking up to that reality that this is what's going to happen. These are the things that are going to occur when we just allow another country. Because why? Everybody's going to look to the U.S. for help. Everybody's going to look to the U.S. for support to say, hey, help us out, give us money, provide us, something. Right now they're talking about sending over jets so we can send jets over to Poland. That's money on the taxpayer. Those are taxpayer funded aircraft. It's going to be, if they get shot down, granted, hey, Poland may have to pay us back. Ukraine may have to pay us back, but it's an absolutely insane thing that when you only look at it and say, oh, Russia just wants their land back. No, there's a lot more than that. And I guarantee you, Putin didn't go in there just for the sole fact because he wants the fucking land. He knows that it's going to trigger a lot of things. It's going to trigger more than likely it's going to trigger the United States to come in and pay him off. It's going to require the United States to step in and say, you know what, we're going to give you some money to back the fuck off. That's more than likely what's going to happen. If you don't think that those are the kinds of things that occur, you're just fucking naive. You're stupid. You got to open your eyes. There's a much bigger picture going on here. He doesn't just want his land. He wants something more. He wants something more. And, we're giving it to him right now. We're giving it to him. We're funding the war. We're allowing more pollution to take place. We're doing the exact opposite thing that Biden said he was going to run on his platform. He said he was going, there's tweets he put out there that said he was going to, bring an end to the pandemic immediately. That no wars. That he was going to he's going to control Putin. It's the exact opposite. He's doing the exact fucking opposite, and it sucks. It really fucking sucks. Again, I'm a supporter of my commander in chief. I'm not one of these people that says I don't give a fuck. No, I'm never going to support Biden. No. Biden is the president of the United States, whether he got there rightfully or not. We're beyond that at this point. Biden is the president of the United States, and I have to stand behind him and I have to support him. I can disagree, but if it came down to a physical altercation, I would support Biden. If that's what it took, if it meant fighting for my country to support my commander in chief, that's exactly what I would do. And that's what I mean by that. It doesn't mean that I like everything he does. It doesn't mean I like him as an individual. I don't have to, but being American, part of that comes along with it. And I think that people miss that you miss the intellectual side of things, that there's more to all of this. It's not just, hey, we're going to drop a bomb and everybody goes the fuck away. No, it's just take the lessons we learned in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's the same exact thing. It's just a different country doing it. But Russia doesn't have the fucking economy. They have an economy that's literally 1/15 the size of ours. We have an economy that's nearly $15 trillion a year. They have a $1.5 trillion a year economy. We had sanctions directly against Russia. As soon as Biden got into office, he removed those sanctions on Russia. Now we're in discussions with buying oil from Iran. Now we're in discussions for buying oil from Venezuela, when we didn't have to buy oil from anybody. But the only reason we're in discussions with Venezuela and Iran is because they want to figure out, oh my God, it looks really bad that we're buying oil from fucking Russia while Russia's bombing another country. So now they want to go to Iran and Venezuela? No, this is a real fucking problem. When we can be energy independent all by ourselves. Texas is largely energy independent. We don't have to import energy from anywhere else. We produce enough natural gas and renewable energies through solar and wind that Texas is completely energy independent. We don't have to buy energy from anywhere else. There are other states in the country that are required to buy energy from other states. When I lived up in Canada, Alberta, the province of Canada where Calgary is, Alberta is very much like Texas, and Calgary is very much like Houston. They're very similar in almost every aspect, all the way down to a fucking rodeo. And I know people in Texas aren't going to like to hear this, but Calgary actually has the largest rodeo in the world. It's way bigger than the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo from a pure rodeo standpoint. The Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is the largest entertainment event in the world because of all the concerts and the other bullshit that goes on. But from the rodeo aspect, it's actually Calgary. Sorry, guys. Sorry to say that. But when I lived in Calgary, the province to our west was British Columbia. And during the day, Calgary, Alberta actually produced enough energy during the day that we sold energy off to British Columbia. They actually sold their excess energy production off to to British Columbia. And then at night, because Alberta gets so fucking cold, they would have to buy energy back from British Columbia and at twice the price. because it was higher usage, higher demand. So they would literally sell it off for like 50 cents to British Columbia and then buy it back at $1. We don't have to do that shit here in Texas. We produce it all on ourselves. Our country, the United States as a whole, we were energy independent. The country was producing enough of our own oil, natural gas, solar, and wind that we didn't have to buy from anybody else. We didn't have to. And now we are. We have to buy from other people because we shut down production. We put a halt to any new leases or any additional leases in the Gulf of Mexico. Certain areas, there's no more drilling allowed, no more exploration. These things have a trickle down effect. That's what causes the economy to go down. That's what causes the price of oil to go up. That's what causes inflation to go up because your dollar's not going to go as far when we're having to bring in money from outside. It's no different than here in the United States when you have the argument about immigrants coming in from south of the border. Our country needs immigration. Our country was built on immigrants, and especially the Mexican population. I love having them here. They're amazing people. They're very family oriented, and we need people like that. We need that in this country. We need stronger immigration here in the United States. We need better laws for an easier path for immigration. But that's one of the arguments is that because the way the system is, that the immigrants that are coming in here right now, because they're not legal, they're sending their money back over the border instead of keeping it here, instead of paying taxes, instead of buying more products, goods, and services here in the United States. They're sending their money back over the border. Well, that's exactly what's happening when we buy energy, but we're buying it at such larger scale. So much larger scale we're buying it at when we have to buy it from Russia or Venezuela or Iran, 50 million, $100 million a day. That shit fucking adds up. If you're buying $100 million a day of goods and services from another country, that's $1 billion every 10 days. That's fucking insane. That's fucking insane. Every month we spend $3 billion buying products from across the fucking globe when we can produce it here at a lower expense, cost us less to actually produce it here. It's crazy. So, anyway, guys, my intention is to do this once a week. Again, this is going to be a Sunday live show. I'm going to do this once a week. I'm probably going to change the time. I'll probably do it a little bit earlier. I had some things I had to do today, but I will come in and do a live once a week. Come in and fuck with you all and talk with you guys. That the purpose of this is to hey, put some shit in the comment sections. If there's some things you guys want to talk about, there's some things you want to hear about. More than happy to discuss it. Like I said, again, you guys want to call me a piece of shit, you want to talk shit, whatever, I don't give a fuck. We can go down that road. I am, whatever. But we'll have some of these conversations. I'm going to do this once a week. Let me know what you guys think. Shoot me some messages in the comment section below. Tell me what you guys think about it. Tell me if there's some things you guys want to hear me talk about. But like I said, this will be the location for the Sunday shows. I am actually going to start doing my Zoom interview calls from this location as well. Just kind of changing things up. I think it's a little bit better of a format doing it from here. I have done some upgrades to the studio, did some lighting upgrades to the studio, did some equipment upgrades to the studio. So I'm very happy about that. So I've got some really good shows coming up this week, next couple weeks. Also going to start, we're going to start releasing shows on Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. That's going to be the new schedule for the shows being released. Instead of releasing them every single day as they happen, I'm going to release them Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then I'm going to do a live show here. So like I said, if you guys want to get on here, fuck around a little bit, talk some shit, you got some questions, some things you guys want to bring up, more than happy to discuss it. And again, this is for pretty much anything, any topic, any direction you guys want to go. Doesn't have to be politics. It could be about sports. It could be about whatever. I think I'm well versed on a lot of this shit to be able to stay consistent with everybody. So yeah, guys, like I said, going to keep this about an hour. That's the intention here. If you guys, Like what I'm doing, give me a like, give me a subscribe. If not, fuck off. Um, uh, like I said, I'm just here for the entertainment. This is entertaining for me, guys. So I appreciate everything. I appreciate everybody who reaches out. Thank you guys for constantly reaching out to me personally through different various methods of, of 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 text. I appreciate it, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Have a great week. Bye.